I've been thinking a lot about Luke 18 verse 1. It goes like this. And he told them a parable to the effect that they ought always to pray and not lose heart. So if Jesus wants them to pray and not lose heart, and he uses a parable to accomplish this, then it makes sense for us to study this parable. I'll sum it up in my own words. In a city there was a judge. Not a good judge, a bad one. He didn't care about God or people. Also in that city was a widow. She would come to the judge continually, pleading for justice. The judge would always say no, but he thought to himself, even though I'm so bad, I'll do the right thing for her, because if this lady keeps coming to me, she'll wear me out. The ESV follows up with, and the Lord said, hear what the unrighteous judge says. And will not God give justice to his elect, who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? I tell you, he will give justice to them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Hold on. Before you jump to any conclusions, let me clear something up. Yes, in this parable, the people praying are represented by the widow, and God is represented by the judge. On the other hand, no, God is not unrighteous, and no, he will not answer our prayers because we bother him. With that out of the way, let's try to figure this thing out. I'm going to admit, though, I'm not 100% on what all this means. I'll let you in on what I do know, and you can study it yourselves afterwards. So we should start with context. Let's look at the target of this parable. I believe that in verse 1, them and they refers to different people. Sorta. Them is easy. In the previous chapter, specifically at 17:22, it begins with, and he said to the disciples. What we read in the beginning of 18 is a continuation of that conversation. So them, the people Jesus is talking to, are the disciples. That brings us to they. They are the ones that are to always pray and not lose heart. So who are they? The answer to that is in verse 7. And will not God give justice to his elect, who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? The crying to him day and night is the always praying in verse 1, like the widow in the parable. The ones doing it in verse 7 are God's elect, those who are believers in Christ. So hopping back to verse 1, are them and they the same? Yes, but that's not all they is, or are. I'm not really sure on that. The people who are to pray and not lose heart are all Christians everywhere. That includes the disciples, but it also includes you and me. Now we get to the complicated parts. Before this parable, Jesus was talking about the end times. When explaining this parable, he refers to the end times again by saying in verse 8, nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? The Son of Man is Jesus, and his coming to earth is the second coming, the end times. So if this is about the end times, one could assume that the giving justice referred in verse 7 and represented in the parable will happen when Jesus comes back. If that's the case, we have to clear up some stuff. In the ESV, verse 7 is two rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question always has an implied answer that is usually obvious. The first one is, and will not God give justice to his elect, who cry to him day and night? The implied answer is yes, God will give them justice. That was the whole point of the parable. The second rhetorical question is, will he delay long over them? Now the implied answer is no, I think. The issue is the word delay. What does that mean? It's been about 2,000 years, which feels like delaying. I've said this before, I'm no Greek scholar, but the word here translated as delay is this word. Go ahead and read it, because I'm not going to. Anyway, everywhere else, it means being patient. If we use that translation, then it asks, will he be patient with them? The implied answer being yes, due to all the verses referring to God's patience. Will he give justice? Yes. Will he be patient? Yes. So here's what I think is going on here. If we lose heart, we will stop praying. If we stop praying, we will lose heart. We can keep from losing heart by reminding ourselves that our prayers are not just going up into the air, but are heard by a God who is patient and will bring justice. Jesus ends this passage by asking if he will find faith on earth. Let's grow our faith by continuing to pray and not losing heart.